glare, as you know, can be range from discomfort to disabling. We all know that as you drive at night, that a car approaching with its high beam on would be disabling and could create an accident. In the case of sports, a fast-moving ball can create the same issue. How do we measure the control of glare? CIE has established a scale which revolves around an algorithm that the computer can calculate for us. The result should be less than the just admissible 50 mark. Most sports have a limit of 50, higher levels a limit of 40. How can we achieve this? I'm glad you asked. We can exclude luminaires from critical areas. We can mount luminaires above a specific height and select appropriate photometric distribution. Let's look at them one at a time. Exclusion in the first instance. Most sports have areas where it's recommended to exclude luminaires. In football, the area beyond the goal line should have no luminaires in it. In the case of football or soccer, a key point of the game is the corner kick, and the goalie has to be able to perceive the ball in travel from the corner position. Therefore, there should be no luminaires in an arc behind that corner location. On the flip side, there are recommendations of where to actually locate poles. So the blue zone here is the recommended location for a corner pole area. Flipping that all around the field, we start to build up a pattern of where we can and we can't install luminaires. Let's try a few examples. The first example is a 4-pole layout. We're outside of the prohibited zone. We have the poles on a lower mounting height, in this particular case about 18 metres, providing all the statistical requirements of football. However, once the ball actually crosses the line between the posts, then viewing it from the defender's position, you're relying on the fact that the ball is spherical to get light from the sides to be able to perceive the ball coming towards you. A better option would be to locate the poles behind the goal lines, but outside of the sidelines. This provides excellent vertical illumination on the ball travelling towards the goal, right up to the goal line. It does, however, require higher poles to be able to get light into the centre of the field, and it makes getting good uniformities more difficult. A better option is to actually put a third set of poles in and have the 6-pole solution, which enables you to spread the light. We can go from lower poles because we're only lighting the one third of the field each, essentially, with some overlap. We are lowering the shadows and still providing adequate vertical lighting from behind the ball from the defender's point of view. Mounting the heights above a specified height. It's one thing to mount those poles where we're out of those zones, but if it's low, then it's still going to create a glare issue. There is a formula that is normally recommended to set the height of the lowest luminaire. That's not the pole height, it's the lowest luminaire. It's based on the distance of the pole from the centre of the field. This is set out usually depending on the pole layout configuration. If you're in the corners only, you've got to work to the field centre. If you're on the sides, it's the centre line that the calculations are done by. There's a new Australian standard about to come out which actually has those corner poles in the 6-pole configuration, lighting to the middle third basically of each end. When we look forward, we are looking at about 1 degree that we actually focus on. At about 20 degrees above that, we have a natural shielding of the eyebrow. So if we place a luminaire within that 20 degree zone, it is by default in the glare zone. So by simply moving it up into the area above 20 degrees, while we're looking horizontal, the glare, the disability glare, is cut out. an example of lights mounted quite low, and if you look at the far right-hand corner of the field, considerable glare from that pole, which is quite a long way away. Also, with these poles being under height, you'll see that the uniformity is also quite bad, and we'll talk about that in a moment. The third way to minimise glare is to select an appropriate photometric distribution. If we look at the EcoBlast distributions, we have 4 beams which are essentially a rotosymmetric, although the third is like a hybrid rotosymmetric asymmetric beam. These rotosymmetrics tend to be very tight beams, and we would call them a spotlight in the old days, and they tend to be high intensity in the center, which does create a glare issue if it's in the glare plane. Typically these lights are used for broadcast TV applications where you can get them up out of the glare zone. We have a low angle asymmetric down to peak around 30 degrees. This is typically, if it's used flat, then it's used for lighting close, or it can be tilted up to 40 degrees to get light out into the center of the field. But the fitting does start to rise at that point and still create a glare issue. The best solution, of course, is the full asymmetric here with a 60-degree peak when the fitting is flat. Therefore, the fitting itself represents quite a low surface area when viewed from the other side or viewed from the field, so that decreases the glare effect.